Thank you so much. And Dr. Pankaj Mittal pointed out that it takes a lot of energy, electricity to even type thank you. But here on this platform, I hope AI is not involved. So let me, with the deepest gratitude to Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Professor Niranjana, Dr. Girish, for such a wonderful keynote addresses. And all of you have already answered, quite a few questions that I had. And also thank you to Amar for such, brilliant comparing. Thank you so much once again. So my first question, without losing time, is, AI is the talk of the town now. It's pervading every aspect of life. And reading so many reports, news, media reports, several industry leaders have created the scenario of more and more tasks being performed by AI and jobs being eliminated and even teaching medical services being taken over. These were traditional jobs that people aspire to. That being the case, what are we preparing and training our youth for? Where will the jobs exist? What will be the nature of work? Where will be the opportunities for people? And how should we redesign our education to prepare for these constant shifts? So, my question to Professor Rishikesha Krishnan, if you can start this discussion.
Yeah, good morning. First, thank you for inviting me to this event. I think this is a pretty evolving area, so it's difficult to make a very conclusive answer on this, but let me just try to give some trends at least which we are noticing. I think let's start by just understanding that even in the workplace, the way work is being done is changing rapidly. Most companies are using AI in their normal work processes itself. So any student or graduate who enters the workplace today needs to understand how to use these AI tools in a successful way or an effective way. So while we of course need to train and educate our students in all the core disciplines, we also have to make sure that they have the skills related to AI that can make them contribute immediately in the workplace. Now, when you look at AI in the education system itself, I think it plays various roles and it interfaces with the education system in various methods. So I think we need to again separate out some things there. One is, of course, using AI to get an answer. Now, when we looking at education, we are not trying to get an answer. I think what we are trying to do is help students develop their thought process. So if, for example, we use the case method in the classroom, the reason we are using case method is not to come to a particular solution. It is to go through the entire thought process and help the students sharpen their analytical skills. Now, this will not necessarily happen if you just use an AI tool, because in a way, the AI is substituting for your thought process. So we need to think very carefully, how do we build the classroom learning experience in a context where AI is also playing a strong role. And I believe, therefore, we need to rethink the class learning process itself, as well as the evaluation process. Again, many of us have been using projects and other methods which we thought were useful because they are more open-ended. But once again, if all a student is going to do is use a Gen AI tool to answer that, it's not really serving the purpose. So there's a lot of work to be done. Final comment I will make specifically to your question is that, at least as of today, I think what we can see is that Gen AI is very good for answering questions where prior data exists and where that shows you the way to the correct answer. But there are domains in which this is not the case. You take any domain where tacit knowledge is important, where it's not recorded in prior data. There, human intelligence is going to play a significant role. Similarly, you look at any situation where creativity is required and the machine answer is not going to be good enough. And finally, just remember, when we talk about something like strategy, which is the subject I teach, we are always telling students that differentiation is the core to strategy, coming up with a different answer. Now, if everyone is going to be using a Gen AI tool, and the only difference between A and B is that they're going to be using different prompts with the tool, I'm not convinced that that's going to give you real differentiation. Real differentiation will again depend on your ability to bring in creativity and ingenuity to build on what AI suggests. So, to my mind, the tasks which really involve that kind of creative inputs like strategy will continue to require significant human inputs and cannot be dependent on AI alone.
Thank you. Coming to you, Professor Kidiyoor. Someone had mentioned unlearning and relearning as one of the defining, features of higher education moving forward. But this constant, relearning, what kind of costs does it entail for students in terms of time? Because they'll be constantly, revising what they have learned. And also, add to that, do you think that the faculty itself is equipped for these constant shifts? Dr. Mittal had referred to this, that, the AIU is running all those programs for teacher training and, training of vice chancellors, but it also requires a mental shift and agility and flexibility on part of faculty. So both for students and faculty, what kind?
Good morning. Very happy to be here. Today morning, I was going through Times of India, and there is an article on hot jobs in the next 5 years. So they have listed different sectors: agri-tech, space tech, pharma, manufacturing, banking, FMCG, e-commerce, auto, and technology. And they had listed the required skills in each of these sectors. And one skill that was mentioned, which was common, was AI and digital skills. I think educational institutes, higher educational institutes have understood this. Yesterday's Times of India in Ascent, all the teaching jobs were mostly in the domain of AI and data science. If you look at, the 12th standard results have come. So almost all the universities are advertising their programs, and each university has introduced programs in artificial intelligence, data analytics, and data science. So this is a trend that, which higher education has accepted, but rightly so, there is a resource crunch. There are two things. One is the technology. So high-end GPUs and labs and other things, but faculty is the major issue. I think most of my colleagues would agree with that. So we have very, very few people with this background applying to teaching positions. Because what I understand, I think Dr. Rishikesha can substantiate that, from IIMs, people who do PhDs in this area are absorbed in the industry. And for various reasons, industry tends than academia. So, and that is something which I have understood from my colleagues from the engineering college also. They don't get faculty in computer science. They don't get faculty in artificial intelligence and so forth. Whereas there is a great rush for such courses. In fact, Karnataka government came up, there is an article today, they want to restrict the number of students entering computer science because nobody is taking up mechanical engineering. Nobody is taking up civil engineering. Right? So then the question is, how do we upskill the existing faculty? Now, today, if you look at faculty, especially in the context of higher education, more so in business school, right? The portfolio of activities have increased. One is they are required to do research. Everybody is chasing NIRF now, right? The great emphasis on research in the last decade or so. So substantial amount of faculty time goes into research. To produce one paper in a decent journal takes time, right? That is one. Second thing is most of the institutions are also running after accreditations, international accreditations. You have your NBA, you have NAC, WACSB, EQUIS, then you have AMBA. There is so much of documentation. And of course, top B schools also have their faculty spending a lot of time in executive education and consulting, right? So now where is the time for upskilling, especially with regard to AI? So we somehow need to find a mechanism where we get people. That is where I feel that we must seek out partnerships and collaborations with the industry. I think with the new, this NEP, there is a provision for professors of practice, where the professor of practice need not have a formal qualification, but equipped enough to impart knowledge and skills to students with the long experience they have. We must seek out that. And we do have a lot of, one good trend that I see is that there are more and more of companies wanting to have a formal campus engagement. It's not just coming for placement and internships. They want their people to come and teach. They want faculty to go. So I think educational institutes also must create time and space for faculty to do sabbatical. So unless and until we look out at other avenues, it becomes extremely difficult to have AI courses. When it comes to curriculum, there are issues. So we talk about, we talk about NLP, we talk about AI, data analytics and so forth, but it needs to be extremely contextualized, meaning what type of AI we should have in healthcare, what type of AI we should have in engineering, what type of AI we should have in pharma and so forth. And also there has to be some flexibility in the way you design courses, right? When you see something happening in the world of practice, that has to come into especially B schools, right? Enough body of knowledge may not have developed, but it is very important for our students to have that skill set. So these are, the challenges, especially with regard to faculty.
Okay. Mr. Basani, would you like to add to what Dr. Kidiyoor has said? And what has been your experience about upgrading of faculty and, maybe reverse classroom, the kind of engagement that students and faculty can have?
So firstly, of course, we're not a Great Lakes or an IIM. This is a business school that caters to a different set of students altogether. So our problems are a lot different, but the same at the same time. Like we address it quite differently. What we have kind of been doing over the past several years is experimenting a lot. Of course, there's a risk involved in experimenting, but we feel there's also a greater reward when those experiments work. And when it comes to faculty per se, that's obviously the biggest challenge. And what we have been recently doing is having FTPs. But of course, FTPs don't solve the issue, right? It's just a start. It's just one step towards that right direction. This is a big question mark because the problem is, like ma'am said, when your half-life is around 5 months, what do you do? Like, how often do you have to keep retraining, reskilling your faculty? That becomes very, very imperative. And it always becomes this constant chasing what the world is doing. And I think, like sir also mentioned, whole point is to look at it in a way that you pivot in an area, especially for a business school, where you feel you can contribute value instead of mimicking other business schools. There's nothing we can do with AI coming in place. The best that we can do is figure out how it can have its role in taking care of administrative workloads and all of that. But if I have to simplify things, right? You draw a line and then there's productivity on one side and then you have creativity and other things on the other side. You can't expect a faculty to do everything. You can't expect them to do research, consultancy, teaching, administration, co-curricular. So figure out areas that they are good at, give them that freedom of picking those things and kind of excel in those things so that, and also, of course, use these AI tools hopefully to ensure that your administration is kind of offsetted by the implementation of those, so that a lot more time can be given to creativity, innovation, because it requires time. You can't just come out of things just like that, right? It takes a lot of time. And what we have been doing, even our directors here, we focused in areas like disaster management, focused on inculcating certain practices like theater and management. So we've been identifying and looking at things that kind of make a difference to these students. And these are essentially building meta skills, ensuring that these can be carried over even after that first job. So the idea is, can you give them those skill sets that go beyond what technology is offering? And it's been working quite well. And it's always going to be a work in progress. We don't have it all figured out.
Thank you. Professor Sanyal, coming to you, there's one aspect which I wanted to be addressed. It said that routine jobs will be performed by AI, and the only way out is moving up the value chain. But we are talking of billions of people who need to be gainfully employed, and how do you expect every individual to be equipped to take on such strategic roles and creative thinking, because there are so many people as of today doing routine roles in various walks of life. What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, thank you for inviting me. Important BW summit. Jobs.
Yes,
I
jobs,
love
yes.
And what the question you asked also is to be seen from the equity point of view. But interestingly, what has happened in the last decade or less than a decade, I'll say, last 5-6 years, the way AI, technology, and digital platform, the fast moving, it has created a big gap between what we teach or what we do and the skill required by the industry. That's for sure. Another thing, can everyone be equipped with skill? That was you asked. Now, all business, we are from business school, so I say, it's trying to address this problem. I was fortunate or I was there in one of the conferences organized by one of the top 4 consulting agents. And they told me that they only see skills. So they are masking the name of the institute from where they're institute from the students are applying. They have a series of skills that they want very clearly. They have developed it, or their AI has developed it, I don't know. And when the students apply, they match, their AI tools match the CVs and their skills that they have against the skills they require. They don't see which institute they're coming from. Okay. And thereafter, whoever matches, they go forward and see whether what they have written is right or wrong. And then, so industry has moved to a skill-based industry. But again, you should remember there's one of getting into the job. But if you see in the long run, they'll need knowledge. They have to need knowledge. You cannot, skill is important, but you have to, so what we teach in a business school or others, the knowledge we gain in the class by the teachers stays with them lifelong. Because you will go up the ladder. So why will you go up? So now, coming to your question, can we impart AI to everyone? If not, what they would, they're left out. So the question of equity comes. In a good business school, we have labs, etc., where faculty can learn, and faculty are provided facility to learn. It's not that whoever faculty wants, like IB or we or anyone, any go to the school have provisions, funds allotted for training up faculty and students. But the problem lies across the country, how we are going to do that. And so what is happening, a gap is creating the skill required by the industry and the skill that present generation has. So the universities, the way we are imparting, or the business school, or whatever, may not be ideal for what the industry needs. So we are not, the equity comes. How can the government go to tax? How can internet be faced? See, you need basic fundamental internet. Knowledge is there. Actually, knowledge is cheap as it is. The amount you spend on an internet connection is much less than the knowledge available. We are acquiring a knowledge previously when we were young, we had to spend much more money. But I can tell you nowadays, knowledge is much cheaper. Only a small token of, I think, 300 rupees or 400 rupees. If you have a connection, you can access knowledge. But the thing is that are we reaching those people? In urban area, we may have some facility, but not all. So what you are saying is important, is that how we are going to scale up this AI learning. And that's a big question. It will take some time. And because of it will take some time, there will be a gap. And there will be a serious concern also on that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Before I come to Dr. Singh, I would also like Dr. Krishnan to give your view on this question that I raised.
Repeat the question again.
Yes, so basically I'm asking how, the question of equity that we have discussed, every person might not be equipped to scale up to that level. A large number of people are doing repetitive jobs at the moment. And when AI takes over so many jobs, how will, gainful employment be ensured for billions of people?
No, I think one should be a little careful in how you look at this whole issue. I mean, at least in the short run, I can see several jobs where I cannot see robots or AI or anybody taking over these jobs. You take a job like nursing, there are several, you take a job like even things to do with health, sanitation, many things, they are not going to be taken over by AI or any other technology in the very short run. In some very long run, they might, but in the short run, they will not. So I think one really needs to understand what kind of skills are required for what kind of a job. Now, if you look at Gen AI skills, which enable you to do tasks better, maybe those skills need to be diffused quite widely. But on the other hand, if you're looking at the AI programming skills, which are going to enable us to use AI in different applications, that may be only a very small number of people need to do. And in fact, already, things like programming, you already have AI agents which can write programs better than human beings. So I think you need to map out the whole thing. To me, it seems at a very simple level that there are plenty of jobs which are not going to be replaced in the short run. However, I think the challenge is many of those jobs may not be very high paying jobs. That's, I think, going to be one of the challenges you will face. So at the low end and at the very high end, those jobs will remain. Where the jobs are going to be threatened is actually in the middle. And that's going to be certainly a challenge for all countries, and particularly a country like ours, where we have a very large population and we have literally millions of people trying to get into the workforce and millions already in the workforce.
Thank you. Coming to you, Dr. Singh, we are discussing AI, ML, and much of this discussion pertains to engineering, sciences. I feel in this whole discussion, at times, several other streams are in a way left out: humanities, fine arts, liberal arts. So moving forward, how do you integrate all these disciplines and integrate AI? And do you see a scope for interdisciplinary approach across different streams?
Thank you. Thank you for your question, and good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. I would basically continue with what was the discussion earlier and then move on to your question. That AI is taking away the jobs, and how do you basically ensure that everybody gets, and then I'll come to this because they are linked. You're right, they are taking away jobs. In fact, just 2 days ago, we also read about IBM taking away 200 HR related jobs and replacing it with automated AIs. Or similarly, TCS, they're already having that AI chatbots to basically tackle the first level tickets. So whenever there is an issue raised, the tickets are issued. So first level tickets are always dealt by the AI chatbots. But at the same time, you still require people to ensure that these things are done bias-free, isn't it? For example, an AI might run a diagnostic screening for detecting cancer, but you still need a radiologist to basically say that, no, there's no false positive, isn't it? So there is, as Sir also mentioned, we have still not reached the stage where all the jobs will be taken up by AI. Second thing I would also talk about is how do you reach? So when computerization happened and the things were that you need to learn Excel and Microsoft and all those things, that time also there was a similar question that jobs will be gone and how do you ensure that everybody learns? And today it has been so seamlessly integrated with our curriculum. You don't need to teach Excel separately. In fact, all the domain, whether it is arts or finance or anything else, are basically dealt using technology, using Microsoft, isn't it? So you have graphic designing to help the artists that you are saying to create designs. Similarly, for liberal arts, there are different technologies available that are being used. So these are enablers. At present, they are enablers. Maybe tomorrow they would take away some of the routine jobs, but where creativity is concerned, as you said, there's still that human element would be there. So coming back to the point, whether it is humanity, whether it is liberal arts, whether it is management institute, whether it is STEM related courses, AI will come everywhere. We were talking about AI last year. Today we are talking about generative AI. And already there are talks that in 6 months, agentic AI will come. So technology will basically move in its own pace. What is needed from higher education is basically to integrate the same into the curricula. And yeah, it is not easily done. I mean, not done in very near future that immediately you can implement everything, ensure that everybody is AI expert. But yeah, there is a need to basically integrate with industry, whether it is for any discipline, for any discipline. There is a need to integrate with industry, ensure that they are project-based assessments. Industries are called to the institute as practicing manager, which ICFAI has been doing it since last almost like a decade, that we have been calling practicing managers to, out of 3 credit course, 33 sessions, at least 11 sessions, to be taken by industry, ensuring that whatever is happening in the industry is basically taught to the student. So similarly, AI related aspects have to be blended, embedded in our course curriculum to ensure that the students graduate AI aware. So that
Thank
is
you.
what.
So moving on to Professor Sanyal, where does that leave the human connect, the emotional well-being uh, in this whole scenario? And how are B schools and how are educational institutes taking care of that aspect of education?
Well, the new generation is unique. We see the new generation now and coming up. They'll have to work on their own. The fact is that they feel that they want to not only they want to learn in their own space, the way they want to learn, and also what they want to learn. And maybe they want to go forth, learn, come back, one class over. No, they want to go back. If they don't understand, they will go again and learn. Or if they understand, they'll skip it. And they are time fine. In the classroom, the faculty who is teaching is at times is not adding value to them because they have learned all. It does not think that they are all are bad students and they're doing lost. They are very good students. They learn on their own and they learn pretty good. Now, emotional connect has reduced significantly. We have to accept that. Not only in the hierarchical space, but at home also. The amount of time that parents spend with their children has gone down drastically. And that has impacted higher education. After COVID, the new generation has got a way of learning. Now, developing an emotional connect has become a very, very important as well as very critical also. So every higher education institute now tries to have counselors, forums where they can go and express themselves, to meet them. Some of them likes to talk to the boards. They're fine taking counseling for the boards. The young generation, they're fine. They're happy with them. And I was reading an article on that. The amount of student like young generation who wants to take advantage or take counseling for boards have enhanced significantly. So this is a new generation to understand that. So the ecosystem in an educational institute, and that's what I'm saying, the universities or institution like us has to play a very important role. to educate them on the ethics of using modern tools. How it can distort their thinking. Because don't think AI always puts all things which is ethical. And the way they put it is also not right. They reach out various knowledge to not so desirable audience. So we have to good governance, ethics, all these things is the onus of good institutes, or all institutes, why good institutes? All institutes to educate the students on this field. What is the wrong thing which can go if AI you used not in a right way? That's a danger part of it.
Sure. So coming to Mr. Basani, Professor Sanyal discussed about the ethics of AI. How in your institute are you dealing with some of the questions of AI, including cheating or unethical use of these tools?
I think my ma'am is right. I should ask her. Yeah, it is a very difficult point because the whole question comes down to what are we really evaluating for? And are we asking the right questions? Are we asking questions that require applied knowledge, or is it just very generic questions? And at a business school level, I think we have to stem away from doing things the usual way by asking traditional questions. And that's something that we keep discussing. I keep discussing this with our director, saying, can we relook at the entire evaluation itself? We know we can't do anything with AI coming into play, but can you just, I don't know, introduce an internship at the right in the start of the program, or can you add a couple of more mini projects? So the entire point is a stark difference between learning and doing. If we aren't creating that environment for doing or practice, it really doesn't matter whether you have a 9.8 GPA or whatever. And we are moving away from that because we know that the evaluation has to be based on outcome that has an impact. If that isn't there, then what are you really evaluating? And if you can go around in circles by changing the whole metrics of what evaluation is. But when it comes to, I mean, today, like I think the previous speaker also said it becomes quite evident when you know an individual, whether that work is truly done by that individual or not. And small example, we get hundreds of CVs. You can really tell that these are all ChatGPT CVs.
Very true.
And same thing with students submitting assignments.
Sure.
So the whole point is, don't evaluate them for those things. Give them something that has them thinking. Otherwise,
It's like earlier we had this open book exam, and we used to wonder how will open book exam be conducted.
Yeah, and don't give so much of an importance to that evaluation system, saying, because you create a system of fear, and you create a system that, okay, I need to get this score, otherwise, I can't get into the job that I need.
Sure. Thank you. So coming to you, Professor Kidiyoor, some of these aspects have been, dealt with in the national education policy. Now I know several states are not on the same page vis-a-vis NEP. So what solutions are being suggested by the states to address these ever-changing industry needs, the changing needs of younger generation, and also given the domination of technology?
See, to the best of my knowledge, whether it is NEP or the SEP, which was being spoken about, they give broad guidelines, right? And probably, they indicate that students should have more of hands-on experience. So more opportunity should be created for internships and other things. Now, why it becomes important is that so far we have been a very, very rigid system as far as the typical university system is concerned, that you must have so much component for internals, you must have an end-term exam. There are some institutes which do not do that. They feel that, okay, this is the right way of assessment, I will not have an end-term exam also. So I think NEP has given some flexibility, maneuverability. Right? Now coming to the part that Sir was speaking about, which is ethics, right? I think that is something which is very important, which has to be made mandatory. You had asked me a question which I did not answer. That is about adaptability, right? Actually, it is a whole thing is about shaping the attitude of students. Today, what we see is that they are more very transactional, especially when it comes to B schools where everyone has to go out with a job. And the ecosystem also seems to support that feeling. We train them on how to give interviews, we train them on how to write CVs and all. Everything is centered around getting a job. I think what is important is convincing them that you are studying for a career which is going to be there for 40 years and there is so much of uncertainty. So that is where this adaptability concept also comes, right? So doing something by fear that if I don't do if I do this, I'll be penalized, I think is not as good as doing something by conviction, saying that this is not the right thing to do. That is where I think most of the higher education is having problems, right? Because most of us would agree here, when we went to school, it was more about shaping attitude, right? Making us understand what is right and what is wrong. Today, I don't think that happens. And probably in a place where they spend 1.5 years, it's a big challenge to shape the way they see the world. Right? So, of course, government seems to have now realized that, there's no longer the traditional way of delivery. The way students consume content also is different these days. And they're very happy being alone. Sir was saying that, in fact, I was talking to an HR manager. He said me that he recruited someone. After 1 month, he came and asked the HR manager, can I have some work where I don't have to work with others? So these are the challenges that we are facing. The lot of bravery on the social media, but social shyness has increased.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Professor Krishnan, I would like you to make the concluding remarks from you.
I think, one challenge before all of us is that, AI may not be the end of the story. I mean, there are a lot of other changes which could happen. I don't know what they are, but there are people who look into the future of technology and so on. I'm sure they can tell you. So I think we should sort of keep asking ourselves, what are we trying to do in the education system? And what do we need to do that effectively? So clearly, we have to be able to adapt to the technological changes around us. But at the same time, there are some basic and core things we are trying to achieve through the education system, and we need to remain, in a way, faithful to those. So I think there's a tendency when any of these big changes come to get shaken up by them, which is natural. But at the same time, we shouldn't lose sight of what our fundamental mission is. And I think that's really where we need to focus. I think I'm just listening to the other panelists. I can see that all of us are trying to address that in our own way, with, of course, dealing with all the changes in the environment around us. But I think that's really the core. We really need to understand what is the purpose of education, why do we exist, what are we trying to achieve, and how can we achieve that in the best possible way given the environment in which we are.
Sure. Finally, Dr. Singh, your concluding remarks.
So NEP or SEP, state education policy, or whatever the institute takes, ultimately the goal is to ensure that the students, when they graduate, when they come out, they are industry ready, or they are ready for the career that they have chosen. It might not always be management institute, it would be different other courses. And for that, in the changing circumstances, as Sir was also saying, the level of the time duration within which they can sit in the class is only half an hour, and after that they get distracted. So in terms of all those things, keeping that in scenario, it is very important that higher education institute should also think about how to basically tackle those kind of challenges. Do we still go to that rigid fixed syllabi system, or do we basically go to a modular outcome-based education where you talk about micro-credential programs where the students can go for a particular program, understand it in their own way, at their own pace in the personalized learning system, and then go ahead and earn credits. So maybe we are already being forced into go into that direction where we already see that the rigid system is not working anymore. And we have to think of how to integrate the new education system to basically tackle those challenges that we are facing and ensure that the students are really ready and they understand that since it is changing every 5 months, as ma'am said, since the job scenario is changing every 1 year or 2 year, how do we become a lifelong learner? How do I ensure that I skill myself, I reskill myself, and I keep upskilling myself?
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful discussion, very engaging. And thanks to all my fellow panelists. Thank you.